Hello everybody, I hope you are all having a very snazzy Halloween, and I'm going to be going over 3 true scary stories that I found on the internet.
بیش از 90 نفر اعلام شده است. بیشتر آنها دچار سوختگی شده‌اند. سانحه برخورد قطار مشهد سمنان و قطار تبریز مشهد صبح امروز نزدیک ایستگاه 7
والا نمیدونم صبح همینجور خواب بودیم که یه دفعه
In February 2004, a string of 51 railway wagons were sitting at a station near Nishapur, Iran. Although this train didn't have your average everyday cargo, it had sulfur, petrol, cotton, and tons of ammonium nitrate on board, and for an unknown reason, the petrol and cotton wool broke loose from their siding at the Abu Muslim station and rolled down the track for 20 kilometers until it derailed and rolled down an embankment into the town of Qiyam. At the time, nobody was on board to try to hold down the brakes of the train or signal anyone of the disaster to come. At this point, almost nobody was hurt. There was just some flammable material on the ground, and the only thing that everybody had to do was not light any fires. The material on the ground was extremely flammable and highly explosive, and the Iranian railway station had not classified any of them as dangerous before the incident. As the local rescue team began trying to clean up the mess, somebody or something caused small fires all around the wreckage. As small fires erupted all around the wreckage, eventually a large explosion was found to be imminent. The resulting explosion was reportedly equivalent to 180 tons of TNT being demolished. 295 people were confirmed dead on the scene, with 460 injured, and 182 of those being workers and state officials. On September 23rd, 1904, at 10:15 a.m., the kids at a public school in Pleasant Ridge, Ohio, are let out to recess after their morning classes have finished. It was a cloudy Friday morning and nobody expected it to rain. Recently, a school nearby had closed down and school was above its normal capacity. The teachers didn't see the storm above and the kids kept playing outside. Only a few minutes had passed since the kids started playing, but rain started to drip down from the sky above. Some of the kids ran inside, and some on the other side of the yard decided to run into the outhouse for shelter. Just the year before, the school had a carpenter replace the floorboards of the outhouse. As the girls kept streaming into the outhouse, a little girl, 12 years old, said, "What if this would break down with us here?" While the girls were jumping and playing around in the square space, little did they know, but below them the floor would give out and plunge them into the 12-foot hole below. There were 31 girls in the room, and all of them had fallen into the hole together. One of the survivors of the incident, Edna Girk, stated that everything became dark. Everyone was clutching at their neighbor while there was a terrible outcry. I think every girl was crying at the top of her voice. We were all tangled up with each other and struggled to get free. I was pushed about and some attempted to climb on my shoulders. I made a grab for a stone, but there were so many tugging at me that the weight tore my hold loose and I went down. Even then the struggle continued under the water. With desperation I freed myself and looking up saw daylight, which I never expected to behold again. The smaller children that were forced below had suffered a horrible death of suffocation and being crushed under the sewage water and the masses of girls trying to get above them to escape out of the hole. The principal at the time said that just shortly after recess had ended and the children had gotten inside, he walked across the hallway to speak to one of the teachers, questioning where the rest of the children had went. Then 2 minutes later, one of the girls that had survived the incident ran into the school and contacted the principal. She said that one of the girls had fallen into the outhouse vault, and another girl that had survived the incident ran to the high school classrooms, which were still in session, to contact one of the teachers about the incident. None of the screaming girls talking about how horrible the situation was could have ever prepared the principal on the sight that he was about to witness. There was only one door to the outhouse, and there was about a dozen toilet seats still attached to the wall, but the floor was completely gone. All of the girls were trying to keep their heads above the waist and screaming, "Help me and save me." The principal had almost fainted from the sight. The principal grabbed a rope and tried to pull the students up with as much pressure as he possibly could, and one of the boys had found a long ladder in a barn about 100 yards away. With this, they were able to help the remaining children out of the gaping hole. At the end of the incident, 9 young schoolgirls had died, with the name being given the Cincinnati privy disaster of 1904. The ultimate question was, who was to blame, and was it preventable? State Inspector Fisher visited the scene with the consulting engineer Ward Baldwin, and both declared it a wonder that the catastrophe had not happened long ago. The coroner had placed the scraps of the hoists and flooring under lock and key in the school basement, and when Fisher got a hold of them, he was flabbergasted. They had used yellow pine for the hoists, which was an extremely bad choice. In fact, the entire construction plan was faulty, with all of the hoists depending on the one in the middle. On that Sunday morning, the church bells rang continuously from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. in honor of those that lost their lives at the event. On Wednesday at 9 p.m., many people had gathered outside of the mayor's house and demanded that the fund of the donations that were given to the town after the incident would be dispersed to all the families that were involved, with their funeral expenses and medical bills being paid for. No charges were ever filed or indictments were issued. In my personal opinion, the people that signed off on the room being created and the engineer that was okay with building something so frail should have been sent to prison after the incident. It was December 3rd, 1984, in the vicinity of the Union Carbide India Limited Pesticide Plant in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, India. As people went about their day in the area, little did they know that the people that were closest to the plant were being exposed to a highly toxic gas called methyl isocyanate, in what is considered to be one of the world's worst industrial disasters. The Usil factory was owned in part by the United States and was built in 1969 to produce the pesticide 7, the UCC's brand name for the carbaryl, using methyl isocyanate as an intermediate. The thing was that they were using methyl isocyanate as an intermediate to make it cheaper. The plants in the United States had recently switched to other strategies of being able to create the pesticide without the MIC, but India kept on using it. And in 1976, 2 of the trade unions complained of pollution within the plant, and in 1981 a worker was accidentally splashed with the substance as he was carrying out a maintenance job of the plant's pipes. In a panic, when he removed his gas mask and inhaled a large amount of the toxic gas, he had immediately died 72 hours later. And then, in 1982, a phosgene leak exposed 24 of the workers, all of whom were admitted to the hospital. None of the workers had been ordered to wear any sort of protective equipment. Eventually, 1 month later, in 1982, 18 more workers were exposed to the substance, resulting in burns with over 30% of the body on most of the workers. During the year of 1983 leading to 1984, there were several leaks of the substances used to make pesticides, making the workplace of this factory in questionable condition. By 1984, most of the plant's MIC-related safety systems were malfunctioning, and many of the valves were in very poor condition. And in addition, several vent gas scrubbers had been out of service, as well as the steam boiler intended to clean the pipes, which means that the pipes were not being cleaned whatsoever. During the evening hours of the 2nd of December in 1984, water was believed to have leaked into the tank at E610 via side pipe during the attempts to unclog it, and the tank still contained 42 tons of the highly dangerous substances made to use the pesticides. The introduction of the water into the tank resulted in a runaway exothermic reaction, which was accelerated by contaminants, with the high ambient temperatures and other various factors, such as the presence of iron from the corroding non-stainless steel pipes. As the pressure in the tank was mounting, the crew went out for their tea break at 12:40 a.m., and the reaction in tank E610 escalated to a critical state at an alarming speed within 5 minutes of not being on site. A USIL employee triggered the plant's alarm system at 12:50 a.m. as the concentration of gas in and around the plant became difficult to tolerate. Activation of the system triggered 2 siren alarms, one that specifically sounded inside the USIL plant and another directed out externally to the public. Although the one that was directed out to the public was quickly turned off as company procedure meant to avoid alarming the public, as Bhopal's superintendent of police was informed about the situation at approximately 1 a.m., the closest town to the plant of the name of Chola was evacuated. As the police would enter the plant, they would check the systems at 1:25 a.m., and at 2:10 a.m. they incited assurances that everything was okay. The company USIL would eventually contact the hospital nearby, stating that the gas leak was ammonia, and then later they would change it to phosgene, and it turned out that it was the MIC substance that is highly, highly dangerous. The hospital had no idea what the MIC substance would turn out to be and gave the okay for people to go back into their homes. The initial effects that the villagers had were coughing, severe eye irritation, and a feeling of suffocation with burning of the lungs. The following morning, thousands of people were found to be dead in their homes from the substance entering their lungs. In the immediate aftermath, the plant was closed to outsiders and subsequently failed to make any public data of the event. Also, the hospitals in the close-by region were extremely underfunded, and 70% of the doctors were underqualified to do medical work. The medical staff were unprepared for the thousands of casualties, and the doctors and hospitals were not aware of the proper treatments for toxic chemical leaks. The legal proceedings that followed after the event involved the UCC, the United States and Indian governments, the local Bhopal authorities, and the disaster victims. The UCC would eventually agree on settling between $5 and $10 million to the injured and the families of the people that had lost the lives of their family members. The question was this correct retribution for the harm that was caused to the people in the towns surrounding the factory plant in India? Over 500,000 people were directly affected by the incident, with 3,787 confirmed deaths and over 16,000 unconfirmed deaths related directly to the incident.